Welcome to the Lantern Sports Women's Basketball Preview Show. I'm your host, Reid Murray. Joining me is Sam Becker, and we're here to break down number 13 Ohio State's upcoming matchup with number 12 Michigan. Ohio State coming off of a win against Penn State this past Thursday and already having a win against Michigan earlier in the season. Looks like from those trends that Ohio State might be in a position to succeed. However, Ohio State has had some struggles this year against ranked opposition.
Yeah, and Coach McGuff mentioned the recent struggles. Really, he thinks the main culprit for that is players putting too much pressure on themselves as a result of the key injuries to Madison Green, J.C. Sheldon. And one of the biggest examples of this, I really think, has to be Taylor Mikesell. She's a star scorer for Ohio State, and you just got to acknowledge the fact that she has been playing some inefficient basketball over the past little while. In fact, against Penn State on Thursday, shooting 3 for 12, only 9 points, which is a lot less than you'd expect from Taylor. However, we saw a heavy box in one. Defenses have been really keying in on her, and that has led to some of the inefficiencies we've seen.
Yeah, you're right about that. But going back to earlier in the season, before Ohio State was having some of these woes, Buckeyes had some big success against some highly ranked out-of-conference teams. They opened the season with a win at home against number 5 Tennessee, and then later on defeating number 18 Louisville and number 16 Oregon. So the Buckeyes earlier in the year looked great against these top-ranked teams, but when you look at where those teams are standing now, none of those three teams are currently ranked. The Buckeyes only 1-4 against teams who are ranked at the moment, but that one is Michigan, the team the Buckeyes are facing this upcoming Monday. So potentially Ohio State might have found the recipe for success against Michigan.
Yeah, and I think a good litmus test for this game on Monday can be often seen through a common opponent, and luckily enough, we do have a common opponent over the past week for both of these teams. Ohio State, of course, faced Indiana on Monday. Michigan on Thursday faced Indiana, and neither fared too well. Ohio State gave up 33 points to star Mackenzie Holmes, much of the same from the previous matchup this year against Indiana. Holmes has, in fact, been just one of the best players in the Big Ten. There's no way of getting around it. Michigan gave up 27 to Holmes in a loss, both coming in the blowout fashion. So you can't really gauge too much from that common opponent, but it's good to know they're on pretty level footing there.
Yeah, and one thing to note on that point is Mackenzie Holmes isn't the only player who's terrorized Ohio State. A lot of Ohio State's woes began earlier in the season against Iowa, Ohio State's first loss of the season at home. Caitlin Clark, a 2022 Wooden Award finalist, dropped 28 points on Ohio State in a road victory for the Hawkeyes. Then Mackenzie Holmes, 3 days later, followed up with a 26-point performance in Assembly Hall. And then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, 33 points most recently at the Schottenstein Center in another big victory for the Hoosiers over Ohio State. So the Buckeyes have kind of struggled against some of these individual stars in the Big Ten, and I think the one they're going to have to key in on in this Michigan game is going to be Leah Brown. But the Buckeyes did that successfully in their most recent matchup. They limited Leah Brown to single digits in scoring against Ohio State, and that was, I think, a big key in their victory.
Yeah, and Leah Brown's a prolific scorer, but of course, as you mentioned, we held her to single digits. She was also held to just 9 points on pretty inefficient shooting against Indiana on Thursday. So obviously it can be done, although she's often a catalyst for that offense. Also, Michigan's other leading scorer, Lila Filia, she did not play against Indiana, and it seems as though her status is very much in doubt for Monday. So that would be a huge loss for Michigan and a huge boost for Ohio State. As you said, Ohio State has struggled keying in defensively on those top scorers in the past.
Yeah, so with that being a key to success, Ohio State is going to have to focus in on defense. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, this is a big rivalry game for both of these teams. So that's going to add to the stakes of this one. But is there anything else kind of on the line that you think both teams are going to need to win this game for?
Well, it goes without saying, anytime you have Michigan, Ohio State, it's going to have stakes. But even further, we look into how this plays out for the Big Ten. There's a lot of implications from this game. You've got, in the Big Ten tournament, the top 4 seeds receive the double bye, which is very coveted across college basketball at large. So the winner of this game will really do much to solidify that 4th seed and snag the last double bye. So yeah, this game has huge implications.
Yeah, you're right. Of course, goes beyond the rivalry. The conference implications will always make a game a bigger occasion. So I want to ask you now, as we're about to wrap up here, how do you see this game playing out?
Well, in terms of outcome, I really like how we've been looking. Of course, not the most aesthetically pleasing performance against Penn State. That was the big story there. However, you get the job done. And I think this team will have a good little flow going into March. I think we'll grab some momentum. I'm going to take the Bucks by 10.
In this one, my prediction may not make a lot of Lantern TV viewers happy. I'm actually going with Michigan in this one in a close game. I think these two teams have shown they're pretty evenly matched with that common opponent, and they had a good game earlier this season. I think the home court advantage in Ohio State's woes against ranked teams earlier in this year will just prove to be too much, but I do think it'll be a close game. I'm taking Michigan by 5. But with that, we'll say thank you for tuning in to the Lantern Sports Women's Basketball Preview. For Sam Becker, I'm Reid Murray, signing off.